Hello everyone, welcome back to another Project Gladiator weather forecast. Today I'll be covering the weather for September 18th of 2023, and currently we have a marginal threat for the Texas Panhandle into parts of western Oklahoma. As for our threats for today, we do have a 5% wind threat and a 5% hail threat, but we don't really have all that much of a tornado threat for this marginal threat. Today's video might be a little bit shorter because we only really have one area to cover for today, so today's video might be a little short. But overall, our main threats coming from this should be the threat of damaging winds and the threat of small hail. Taking a look at the tropics, focusing on this yellow thing for here. Hold on, let me change to a color that's a little bit easier to see over the Atlantic Ocean. You can see that we do have this weird yellow thing here for the coast of the United States. Currently, this does have a 30% chance in the next 7 days, and near 0% chance in the next 48 hours. So we could potentially see some tropical development out in the Gulf, but not in the Gulf, out in the Atlantic Ocean between Florida and North Carolina. I think we are expected to see some thunderstorm development across Central Florida that then moves eastward and then uses the heat from the Atlantic Ocean to develop in this region here. So we could see a either tropical depression or a weak tropical storm out in the Atlantic Ocean, and I will continue to cover this and provide updates over the next couple of days. Overall, this seems like this is going to be the only threat as far as tropics for this week goes. We do have Hurricane Nigel here. However, this is expected to not pose any threat to the United States and just veer off into the northeast, as well as we also have this region here, which will most likely not pose a threat to the United States. However, it does have a high chance of tropical development, 70% chance in the next 7 days, and a near 0% chance in the next 48 hours. So we could potentially see some tropical development further out in the Atlantic off the coast of Africa. And I will monitor this over the next couple of days. However, as of right now, it doesn't look like it's going to pose a threat to the United States. But overall, our main threat as far as tropics go is going to be this 30% chance in the next 7 days. This is a fairly lower end threat, but it is still possible. But overall, it could also not develop, but it could also develop. It's a lower end threat, but I will continue to monitor this over the next couple of days. The location that it is expected to impact is probably going to be anywhere along the coast, anywhere from North Carolina to South Carolina and the coast of Georgia. As of right now, again, it is a very low end threat right now, but I will continue to monitor this over the next couple of days and provide updates. So watch for updates on this system as it does begin to develop, and stay weather alert if you do live anywhere along the coast that could potentially be impacted by what could potentially develop in the Atlantic Ocean. Taking a look at our radar omega models, starting off with our 500 millibars like we usually do, focusing on the marginal threat for the Texas Panhandle, you can see that we are expected to see the return of the subtropical jet out of the Pacific across some of the Rockies and the southern United States. This is going to also lead to the return of some lee troughing across the Texas Panhandle. We are also expected to see a dry line develop across the Texas Panhandle. However, I will go more into detail on that in our dew point models. But with that dry line and some of the lee troughing that we have across this region, those two will work together to trigger severe thunderstorm development across this region. But with the return of the subtropical jet and lee troughing, we are also expected to see the threat of orographic elongated hodographs. However, they shouldn't be too severe right now. We are expected to see overall fairly weak mid-level flow. We are expected to see mid-level flow that is going to range anywhere from the 35 knots into the 20 knots. So overall mid-level flow is fairly weak, but we should definitely see the threat of some weak orographic elongated hodographs to support the threat of small hail across this region, as well as the threat of damaging winds. Taking a look at our dew points, focusing on the Texas Panhandle, you can see that we are expected to have a very weak dry line that does develop. You can see it, it's kind of hard to see, but you can definitely see it along the Texas Panhandle with the lee troughing that we have and this dry line. Again, both of those should work together to help trigger severe thunderstorm development across this region. But we could also see dew points that are going to be ranging anywhere from the upper 40s into the low and mid 50s, which will lead to overall weak instability, but however, it should be able to support the possibility of damaging winds and the threat of small to medium hail. Taking a look at our temperatures, focusing on the marginal threat for the Texas Panhandle, You can see after those cold fronts have passed through and we have had significant cooling across Texas with the rounds of severe thunderstorms last week, we are expected to see a return of a lot of this intense heat that we saw the previous week. We are expected to see temperatures that are going to range anywhere from the 80s into the 90s, getting as far north as North Dakota. So we are definitely expected to see a major return of a lot of this heat that since went away from the storms and a couple cold fronts that we did pass that we've had pass through. However, we should see the return of a lot of this heat with as we have had a little bit of a high pressure system situated across the Central Plains. However, that is going to break down over time this week, and we are expected to see some rounds of severe thunderstorms. More on that, more information on the rounds of severe thunderstorms is on the weekly overlook if you want to check that out. But we should definitely see the return of some major heat across the Central Plains with temperatures in the widespread 90s and upper 80s returning back to the Central Plains because, again, we've had a little bit of a ridge situated across this region allowing for heating. And those two cold fronts that did pass through did cool things down a little bit. However, that ridge is going to get temperatures back up into the widespread 90s. Taking a look at our instability, focusing on the marginal threat for the Texas Panhandle, you can see that we are expected to have some fairly weak instability. It is going to be mostly in the moderate into the weaker range. We are expected to see Cape values are going to be ranging anywhere from the triple digits into the low and possibly getting as high as the mid 1000s widespread. However, a little bit to the north, we are expected to see Cape values that could reach some of the upper 1000s and low 2000s. However, overall widespread, we should see Cape values are going to be mostly in the mid to triple digits range, mid 1000s to triple digits range. This will definitely help fuel the threat of some small hail across this region with the orographic elongated hodographs that we have, as well as a threat of damaging winds. But overall, a lot of these threats should be fairly marginal because of overall mid-level flow is definitely very, very weak so far. But this instability should definitely be able to support the threat of a marginal damaging wind and small hail threat. Now that I've told you the weather, please go down to the description and check out the socials for Project Gladiator and join the Discord for any updates on Project Gladiator. If you live in any of the areas that I covered for today, please stay weather alert for the time being, and hopefully I will be able to see you guys tomorrow with another forecast.